But certainly for offensive linemen, this is a day where we get to see what really is happening with the block. Like, are you earning the movement you're getting on the defensive lineman? Can you take the man from point A to point B against his will and do our job to make sure we're creating those holes?
Coach, I know there's been so much talk about DeWand and how different he looks, and he's talked about really building muscle, being an emphasis and slimming down. Just what have you seen from him since you've gotten here and then in these early practices?
Yeah, I think since I've gotten here, I've seen that commitment to become a better version of himself, and that's what we're all trying to do. So that's great. Impressions in the early practice, like I think Friday was probably his best practice all told since I've been here, and that's obviously a very good sign. Now we got to build on it today, because just like everybody in this room, what we got to hunt in these dog days in this phase of this training camp is consistency. And, as an offensive lineman, you can have 58 perfect plays and 2 really bad ones, and that's a really bad deal for our football team. So consistency is the thing we're striving for this week.
What made Friday his best practice so far?
The kid came out and played well. He really just did. I mean, he made a commitment. Once again, like, we talked about this last time I was in front of you. Like, there's so many good things in the package that is DeWan Jones. And it's our job, and it's our collective job, and his job to get those things out of him.
With besides the one, the other 4 guys are 30 or going to turn 30 within the next weekend. So, as a coach, are there any concerns about that? Do you have to coach them any different or manage them any differently because they're a little older than other guys?
Yeah, I think Kevin has a great plan for that in training camp. And certainly as we're trying to make this a physical training camp, how we're going to take care of those guys. And there's a good plan in place. There's also an open lines of communication where I want to hear from those guys. Like, how is your body feeling? Because I know I'm a better coach with those guys on the field. And so we're going to do everything we can to keep them ready for game days while getting them to work at these new techniques in some cases so that they can be completely comfortable and can get their job done when they're in there.
Is there also a comfort level given that those 4 guys have as much experience as they do, especially even together?
Yeah, the nonverbal communication between those guys is really cool. Like a grunt means a lot of things.
I think Saturday with Jackson Barton, you got one of those days off. It looks like. Does that reflect how well Jackson Barton's doing, or is it rotating guys?
Really rotating guys in. I think both Jackson Barton and Cornelius Lucas have done really well to date. Jackson's done some really cool things in the run game. We've got to get him to solidify his pass sets and comfort at sitting down a defender, and that's what we're going to continue to work with him. But with Jack having that day off, it was just easy. Let's plug him in. Let's see how he does. And so it was great to get him out.
With the ones that you have the
with the ones you said?
Yeah, like if one of the tackles are out, it was just Lucas and Barton.
Lucas and Barton right now.
And is Zach Mitchell getting any stuff at center?
He is. Yeah, he's doing a nice job, and you'll actually see him get some out there today.
What's the reasoning behind that? Just versatility?
Absolutely. Like, one of our core tenets is an offense that we're trying to make sure we're doing is multiple and versatile. And it's not like we're going to line up in a lot of different roles as offensive linemen in terms of lining up with this receiver or doing this, running the ball. So what does that mean for us? It means how many positions can we play, the old more you can do adage. And so if you talk about like a game day roster, if Zach has the ability to be a backup center or certainly an emergency center, that's a big deal for our football team.
What have you noticed with Zach just year 2? Obviously, he came in last year. I know you weren't here, but he was coming off a broken leg, and now this year able to sort of hit the ground running a little bit differently. But just, how's he kind of taken during his second year?
Yeah, I mean, not being here, can't really speak about last year, but I can talk about what we talked about back in May or June, whenever that was. Like, this is a kid that's had an off season now, and you're seeing the value of that. I think he's playing at a much higher level than when we first hit the field in April, and that's exactly what I expected. So it's great to see that he's had that time to put in the work, and he's getting more comfortable with these techniques, even as we talk about putting him at center today.
Mike, during spring, during the official discussion, said you have some creative ideas for short yardage. Will we see those on the practice field, or could you enlarge that?
We'll show whatever Kevin and Tommy choose to show, if that makes sense. I mean, we certainly have a way we believe in doing short yards and goal line. A lot of it is technique driven as much as any plays. But yeah, we believe in, once again, as I talked about, the moving a man from point A to point B against his will. There's no time that's more important that we get the movement than in short yards and goal line.
Callahan let the tight end and quarterback sneak for a while.
You're going too deep, man, for this conversation.
Is Zenter a 6 man, an extra blocker on short yardage?
He certainly can be. I think Zach can be. I think Luke Whippler can be. those are all guys that are possible candidates for that role.
Mike,
What was allowed Antonio to remain as productive as he has for long?
I don't know. There's probably some grace of God, but there's also the way that he works, the way that he prepares his body. You know, Kevin gave the guys a night off the other night. I asked Joel to talk to the room about what his process is going to be on that evening and the next day to prepare for what's to come as we go into 6 practices in a row here in Dogville. And he's just unbelievable with his process. I think, again, process is a big part of it.
Mike, kind of a big picture offensive line question. You know, you've been involved with the directors of recruiting, you know, with the years of college. Have you noticed that the pool of offensive linemen coming up through the system from high school to college, is it shrinking in your, the kind of elite kind of offensive line?
I think at every level of football right now, it's harder to train guys to be great offensive linemen. So I'm not sure that the pool is shrinking, but the guys that actually get the development to get to that point prior to getting to the National Football League is maybe less.
Mike, it's been about, I think, 12 years since you were in the
15, yeah. Lifetime.
Is it the same? Games changed at all?
Certainly some schemes have. The way you relate to players, I've always found it to be the same at all levels. And, you know, I always want the players to know, like, I'm there to help them in every way. And I think that's the job of a coach, whether it's working with Coach Bowden early in my career or whatever. Like, your job as a coach is to take a player someplace he cannot or will not take himself. And so what does that mean? We got to find out uniquely how we help each player. And it's not a cookie cutter or a one-size-fits-all model. We're going to have techniques and we're going to have ways to start. Like, how do I motivate this kid? Or how do I give him a technique that's going to be a good tool for him? But as you talk about schemes, yeah, there's some different things, certainly.
Is that the biggest change, the scheme?
I believe so. Yeah, that and the way the off-season is so flag football-esque.
It seems like from watching you like actually coach them out there in practices, like you're constantly explaining the why for like everything you're wanting guys to do. I guess is that a fair assessment of watching you out there? Yes, like why is that important for even if it's like individual just always doing that?
Yeah, I think with everything, you want to be able to connect the individual drill to teams. So again, telling them exactly what we're working and the why, as you're saying. But I think with every block, we talk about AAA, which is not the car service is going to come give you a tow. It's alignment, assignment, adjustment. And if I understand the why behind my technique, then it helps me when that adjustment happens, and I need to do it in a fractional second.
A couple more.
Do you think back to the guy of his stature, the number of work he's made, it feels like at a flashier position he might be a Hall of Fame candidate, but for Football Reference or whatever it's worth, it fits in the rest of the probability. I think offensive linemen are properly represented in the Hall.
You know, I don't even know the criteria, but what I can tell you is having watched and studied Joel for years and years and years before I got here, I think he looks like a Hall of Fame candidate. I don't get a vote, not my area, but yeah, I don't understand that rationale as we talk about Pro Football Reference and saying differently.
Why do you think it could be that?
Why is he deserving?
Why would there be someone overlooking him?
Yeah, I couldn't speak to that. I can tell you again, like the longevity of his career, the high level that he's played at, making those Pro Bowls, and like what do you have to do to make the Hall of Fame? Be top 1 or 2 at your position for a couple of years. He's checked those boxes.
When we talk about Dewan, the fact that he's going to be going against Miles or has been and will be in Pad, like what kind of extra dynamic is that to him and to you, just given that Miles is probably the best in the business in what he does?
Yeah, I mean, as a competitor, you want the best, and especially we get that work in practice, right? Like, come to the dojo and bring your best, because that's all it's going to do is help us if we learn to fight. And so again, I do think there's tremendous value in that. We may not appreciate it every day when we go back and watch the film or when Dewan has a particular rep, but that is all that's doing is sharpening him. It really is the old iron sharpens iron.
I guess
Kind of off of that, just as you watching, a set, kind of watching the film and grading your own guys, what are you noticing about the defense? How much are you kind of like, how much do you say, like you say, that's Myles Garrett going against, or, what Mason Graham has done or anything like that? How much are you kind of noticing that and passing those on to, that?
Yeah, we haven't done a whole lot of crossover with Jock and I where we talk about those things yet, but I believe we will at some point. you certainly notice who flashes, like who is being a consistent problem, who is, if they're giving those four that we've mentioned any problems, that's those ones, then they're probably doing a good job. And so again, like what do we need to do to handle this guy? And we're not in a game plan type format, right? We're not doing that. But at the same time, like the techniques are different for some people. And honestly, going against Coach Schwartz's defense is different. But them being such an attack front, there's different things we have to modify within our scheme just to make it work.
And it's flashing.